Hi, my name is Scott Clausen. I'm the Northeast Area Ag Economic Specialist for the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service. In this webinar, we're going to be discussing the borrower's role in ag financing. So let's look at some of the big picture concepts in terms of the relationship between the borrower and the lender. And first, we need to establish of whether or not we have a relationship with our lender and how detailed is their knowledge of our operation. Production systems, regardless of in what commodity area, can be highly variable. And so it's really important that our lender has a really intimate knowledge of how do we operate, why do we operate that way, and that way they can help us in the future accomplishing our operational goals. So from the perspective of the borrower, how do we view our lender? Do we see them as a teammate in our process or just a necessity to acquire funding? We would like for a teammate concept to be used here in terms of being somebody that we can use as a sounding board for information, strategies, or production decisions on our operation. And so we would consider them typically part of that farm management team along with other advisors like accountants, nutritionists, insurance providers, etc. And lastly, something to keep in mind is that both parties benefit from the sharing of information. And that's something that's really important that we're going to detail further in this discussion. So as we start to talk about what we would be sharing with our lender, there's usually three financial documents that come to the surface pretty quickly. The first is the credit application. The credit application is usually more of an information gathering exercise along with a credit authorization for our lender. The second is the personal financial statement. And while a personal financial statement is a very useful document in our management system, it is important to understand what it does and does not do. The financial statement does a good job of showing what our assets and liabilities are at a single point in time when we make the application. Unfortunately, the financial statement does not show profitability or cash flow in order to make those debt obligations that we're going to be obligated to make. And the last is your tax returns. So these are usually requested and will show a history of cash flow in operation. And while they're probably not the best way to manage that by the book, they are something that most producers do have and are willing to provide in this process. So collectively between those three items, I just kind of posed the question there, do these items alone do justice in telling your credit story? And typically I would think that most producers would say no, there's pieces of this story that those items are leaving out. And that's why we would dig a little deeper and looking to what could we add to this portfolio of information in order to make our credit decision easier for our lender. So the first two items are a bit of an answer to the previous question. So a couple of things that would be immensely helpful are a cash flow and an enterprise budget that not only look at the current operation as it sits, but then how would it change in terms of adding in these new monies from whatever we're borrowing money for. This may seem like a bit of an undertaking, and it probably is, but not only will it be beneficial for the lender, it will be a great way for us to sit back as a farm or ranch manager and look at what is upcoming in our operation. That way we can make some management decisions going into the future. Another item that we would need to look at is be ready to communicate what's on our credit report. So this wouldn't be the first time somebody would have a small medical claim or something like that that has snuck through the cracks. And so those things are actually a little more on the common side than probably we would like to think of. But the real story there is be ready to communicate those items that are on your credit report, and any discrepancies that might be there, be ready to discuss those and be aware that they're out there. And that way you can be in the process of correcting or fixing or explaining those items. Lastly, communicate your farm and ranch operational goals with your lender. Let's say that the money that you're borrowing at this point is the start of an expansion plan. So let's say you're financing one load of stock or cattle to run on your operation this year. But your plans are to expand that to 2 to 3 loads of steers in the next upcoming years. A good idea would be to ask your lender what would you need to do to provide sufficient information to help them finance you on the next stage of your expansion. They might suggest you do a good job of managing your cost of gain and recording that for the bank to use. They might suggest that you start looking at price protection and risk management options, maybe talk to a broker, something to that effect, so that you're comfortable with making that next step. Whatever the case may be, I think it's important to discuss those operational goals with your lender so that they know what's coming in the future and can help prepare you to reach those goals. So just remember that anything that has to do with our credit worthiness needs to be discussed with our lender. Shown above are some of the items that we've discussed previously, but another item that we would need to add into this equation is to discuss borrowing outside of the relationship with your lender. So today we can finance virtually anything anywhere. New tractors all usually have some dealer financing options. We can do the same thing with farm trucks, four-wheelers, etc. So we want to make sure that that borrowing outside of the relationship with your primary lender isn't going to do some harm in terms of financing your operational issues as we work through the year. A little open line of communication there can really save both parties some headache as we move into the future. Another impact would be through the year discussing what you're anticipating the impact of price issues to have on your operation. So maybe that's falling cattle prices or crop prices. Or maybe, like in a livestock situation, maybe you experience an abnormally high death loss in that particular year. Surprises are no fun to either party, so getting ahead of those issues and go ahead and bringing them to the surface and discussing them will make a renewal and new loan request a lot easier because there shouldn't be any surprises in the process at that point. Again, open lines of communication can benefit everyone. Lastly, we have many responsibilities as a borrower, and many of these we've discussed already. First and foremost, fulfill your financial obligations from the loan documents. In addition to the payments and collateral that are specified in those documents, keep in mind of when interest payments are due, when renewals will be updated. Really take time to read that loan agreement that you're making with your lender to make sure that you are aware of all the details that it encompasses. Another thing is help your lender keep current financial documents. You may have annual requirements to bring in your tax returns or financial statements. And just keep in mind that if we're wanting faster turnaround on credit decisions, having updated financials on hand can be really beneficial in making that wheel turn a little faster. Another issue is make sure we use loans for the intended purpose. Using an operating line for household living or other types of asset purchases can really chew into your operating capital and leave you in a bind. And that's something that we surely don't want to happen. So let's make sure that we're using those loans for the intended purpose. Communicate what your goals and expectations are, and look at how both parties can help you reach those goals. Another item is make sure and value having another opinion. You know, sometimes we get a little sidetracked by exactly the what we're wanting to do immediately, and another opinion in terms of somebody who knows our operation and knows our financial position could really be a big help moving forward. So thank you for attending this webinar. Feel free to contact me at the information that's shown below if you have any questions about anything. And again, thank you for participating.